Reminds me of 2010's BuzzFeed quiz.
I could finally get a balance of life.
So you're saying that the MBTI test is unreliable just because of the author's qualification, and also it is based on unproven theories, right?
But those who don't, like, how can they make sense of their MBTI result? This is because of something that we call the Sararubini Indicator.
Hello Malaysia and hello world. I am Nurul, your favorite MC, and today we'll be talking about personality tests. Personality tests can be useful for a number of reasons. You can learn more about yourself and understand better about your strengths and weaknesses. To better understand this topic, we have invited 4 guests. First, let's have a round of applause for our first speaker, Miss Sarah. Next, Miss Angel. Also, Miss Xue Yi. And last but not least, Miss Aqila. The star of the show today is the Myer-Briggs Type Indicator test. It is one of the most widely used psychological instruments in the world, and it is very trendy in the Asian culture. Popular celebrities like the South Korean celebrities use it in their variety show. First thing first, to our esteemed guests here, do you guys know what your personality types are?
Nope.
We have prepared devices for you to sit for the quiz. Has everyone finished already? Let's do a round table to know everyone's result.
I'm an ENFP.
I am an INFP.
I'm an ENFJ.
I am INTP.
Well, that's interesting. Then, today we are going to have a casual debate on MBTI, whether it is a fact or is it a fiction.
I do think that the MBTI is a fact.
Personally, I think MBTI is fiction.
I agree with Xue Yi.
I'm on the same side as Sarah.
But the MBTI test is a self-report inventory designed to identify personality types, so I strongly believe that this test could really help someone to not only understand themselves but also the people around them based on the MBTI results. I think that the MBTI is definitely a great tool to give us a rough view on who we are as individuals.
Personally, I don't think that MBTI is a great tool. The questions were vague and general. Honestly, it reminds me of 2010's BuzzFeed quiz. You know, like those choose between chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry to know whether you are introvert or extrovert.
I think you might have misunderstood the point Sarah is trying to deliver.
Let's look at it this way. Prior to this test, I faced struggle in trying to understand myself. Who am I as a person? The way I behave, react, and perceive certain things. I could not really understand myself until I took this test. More like a confirmation, hey, this is who you are as a person and it's completely fine, it's normal. Based on the MBTI, I am an INFP. Growing up, I was very introverted and I love spending time by myself. Almost all the time. In fact, I enjoy my own company and had a lot of inward conversations and reflections within myself. But over time, I realized that I can't go far by just solely revolving around myself and my own thoughts. It is vital to meet other people and to interact with others, to get other people's opinion and thoughts about a lot of things in life. It could be an eye-opener. I mean, I can get different perspectives from the books I read, but the beauty of life is added by the relationships and the connection we share with others. The way some people make you feel warm and welcome, it's so precious. I came to realize that meeting people and socializing plays a huge role in my life. Only through this, I will be able to gain different viewpoints and outlooks in various matters. Coming back to my stand, MBTI definitely did help me understand myself better and to take little steps to go beyond my comfort zone. For instance, I could finally get a balance of life to actually love spending time by myself and also to interact and converse with other people. I try to be the better version of myself. The MBTI test, for sure, they help me in bringing back to the reality that life isn't just the world you perceive within yourself.
I think that's very good for you, Sarah. I mean, I am an introvert myself, so I understand how hard it is to put yourself out of your comfort zone. It makes you a very open-minded person. But regrettably, you are in the minority here. Usually, people tend to put either themselves or other people in a box. They make blanket statements about their personality, taste, behavior, acting as if they will never act any different. And the way the MBTI results of the method, it only adds to this thing further. They have all these explanations on strengths, weakness, advisor on relationship, friendship. So people tend to follow it to the T. They take note on how they should act with other people based on whether they're an introvert or extrovert, who they should befriend, what profession they should choose, just based on their MBTI result. I believe you all agree here, right? People are constantly changing, very complex. So we shouldn't assume that someone will always be a certain way. We shouldn't put ourselves or other people in a box. Boxes are limiting, restrictive, and can even be soul-setting.
Yes, I do understand that you think some people tend to limit themselves, sometimes even others, within the boundary of MBTI personality traits. But personally, I think that is very narrow-minded for them to do so, because MBTI test is on a grander scale for a greater purpose. It can save lives. Okay, let me put it this way. Depression is a hot issue right now. It has led to many suicide cases. A recent study revealed that low self-esteem affects mental well-being, and it can put us at risk of depression. This issue, I believe, can be dealt with by using MBTI. MBTI helps us recognize our strengths and embrace our shortcomings. It allows us to fully utilize our innate talents to our advantage, and this can boost our self-esteem and improve quality of life. For instance, if you are more inclined to intuition and or perceiving P, you have a natural talent in art. You can nurture your artistic talent and find success in doing so. If you are an ISTP, you might have anger management issue. Then you can opt for meditation or yoga classes to improve your emotional intelligence. Career-wise, employees can develop your skill sets to get promoted or to go for your desired jobs. Devise communication and collaborative strategies according to each other's MBTI to create a conducive working environment for higher productivity. With the satisfaction from self-cultivation and the sense of accomplishment from a successful career, you will definitely feel happily content with your life, and thus this improves your quality of life. All in all, I think MBTI is not limiting a person in a box, but a matter of self-discovery and encouraging self-love.
I'm sorry, but I think I'm a little bit confused. Surely there's no doubt that MBTI does help you become more aware of your strengths and weaknesses, but you shouldn't rely on the test to feel happy. Feel free to correct me if I've misunderstood your explanations, but one's strengths, weaknesses, talents, and personality does not equal to their state of mental health, and vice versa. You cannot blame your personality on your mental health, and you most definitely should not use mental health as an excuse for your personality, regardless of whether it is good or bad. You can't say that, oh, I have depression and that's why I'm acting like, or she's a little bit lost in life, that's why she's acting the way she is. You should never relate your mental health to your personality, and this is so scary because of how it is being normalized nowadays. For example, it's so common for us these days to look at a villain and instantly try to justify their actions by saying, oh, they are acting that way because they might have some sad or tragic backstory. And it is so common these days for us to also use anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, or anything similar as an excuse to explain to one's actions. And it is because of this problem, people with actual mental illnesses are getting bad reputations. If a person is lost, confused, or depressed, I don't think recommending them to take the MBTI test would bring any benefit. Because I believe that even if you are doing something that you love, something that you are so passionate about, something that you're great at for long periods of time, eventually you will feel exhausted and burnt out. Or even if you know your weaknesses through the MBTI test and you put so much effort trying to reduce your exposure towards that thing, will you truly be happy? Wouldn't it be better for you to take a step back, give yourself a break, and take time to heal be a better option? Wouldn't even getting actual therapy from professionals be a better option?
I totally agree with Angel's point of view. Actually, most of us in our early 20s or even 30s, being in one of the crucial phases in life, it is pretty normal that we can be lost in the direction that we are heading towards. I'm sure there are times and even sleepless nights when we would have questioned ourselves about our future and tried to figure out if we are even making the best of our lives. Most of us end up feeling depressed and even get to the extent of suicide. Such emotions and actions are usually triggered by feelings of stress, self-doubt, as well as the pressure and standards set by our society. My stand here is that MBTI would play a huge role in helping people to lead them back to their sole purpose. We all exist for a reason. We are on earth to do beautiful and meaningful things. I believe that we can do what we love and love what we do after taking the MBTI test. It helps us narrow down the career prospects in the market and brings us closest to our interests. By then, we would have an idea of the job that we intend to do in the future based on our personalities. Life would be so special and beautiful when we are finally able to do things that fill our hearts so effortlessly. We would feel content.
It's great that the MBTI test can help you narrow down your interests, making it less overwhelming. And I do agree that most of us in our 20s and 30s are in this quarter-life crisis state. We are fresh out from the long-term education system and then suddenly we're thrown into adulthood, all confused, we're expected to perform our best. However, when we don't, the society labels us as incapable and useless. And it's great that we are able to do what we love. But won't it seem a little bit irrational for us to depend so heavily on a test with unproven theories to help us find happiness? The MBTI test was created by Myer-Briggs and her daughter Isabel, who had no formal education in psychology, based on an adaptation of Jung's psychological types. In his book, Jung did share many interesting theories about how one brains work. However, these theories, they are unsupported. There is no evidence for them. Jung explained that humans can be divided into two main groups, the perceivers and the judges. Later on, these groups are divided into sensing and intuiting, which is subdivided again into sensing, feelers, and thinkers. And then we can group these people together according to their attitudes, which is introverts and extroverts. So these mother and daughter pair merely took Jung's words and modified them so that humans can be divided into 16 personality groups based on a series of questions. Yes, it is undeniable that Jung did make a huge impact in the psychological field. However, his theories and research were done before psychology was even considered as an empirical science. He made these theories based off his observation and experiences. These observations and experiences aren't considered as properly structured researches or experiments of today.
So you're saying that the MBTI test is unreliable just because of the author's qualification, and also it is based on unproven theories, right?
Yep.
Okay. Dr. Aquila's Gordon, an assistant professor in psychological science from the University of Central Missouri, he said this in one of his articles, quote, "The truth that the MBTI is no less valid or reliable than other personality tests," end quote. I do agree with his statement. If the MBTI test is that inaccurate and unreliable, why is it still so widely used even until today? And why is there so many people agreeing that their results correspond to their real life behaviors?
What about those who don't though? Like, how can they make sense of their MBTI results?
Okay, to clear your doubts on that, for those whose result doesn't correspond to their daily behaviors, according to researchers from the late 19th and 2000, this is due to the test takers scoring close to the midpoint between the opposite types. So their behavior will flip-flop between the two opposite types. Those at the extreme ends of each type will have more accurate and consistent testimonies. Going back to the MBTI being unreliable because of the author's qualification, they were discredited just because they had no formal training in psychology, statistics, or psychometrics. However, if you look at the authors, especially the main author, Myer-Briggs' background, you would understand why and that this test is indeed reliable. So Myer-Briggs, she was born in the Victorian era where it was believed that education would harm a woman's reproductive ability. Although she was fortunate enough to be born into an academic family, she could only earn a degree in agriculture and work as a teacher, which was considered very acceptable for a woman in that era. As an avid reader and writer, she studied the works of philosophers, psychologists, and scientists. I am sure that the knowledge she gained from all these books and works are no less than any ordinary man. I would say even more, especially those who are not interested in the psychological field. She didn't just adapt Jung's theory into making MBTI tests. She actually contacted and consulted Dr. Jung directly when she was making the test. With family, children, and the ongoing war, the authors really don't have the chance nor the privilege to pursue a graduate degree in psychology, even if they try to ignore the public's opinion. You must know how remarkable it is for two women, despite their circumstances, are able to come up with such a popular test that is most talked about among the academic circle. They are definitely qualified, and the test is definitely reliable.
Angel, you asked if the MBTI is inaccurate and unreliable, why is it still widely used, right? And this is because of something that we call the Barnard effect, which is a person's natural tendency to think that a generic or vague personality description applies specifically to themselves. The MBTI results are written down in a series of good qualities and qualities that are hard to handle. So since the positive characteristics are written in such a way that they are pleasant to read, and the negative qualities are written as inferior traits, people tend to look everywhere for confirmation of themselves and their personality type. So the natural reaction of on the test result is to emphasize the thing that confirms with the test taker's personality and to dim down the not so fitting characteristic. Compare this with a protein cookie. There's always a bit of truth in them, right? You get the feeling that it is specifically made for you.
Though it is remarkable that Catherine and Isabel did come up with such a popular and trendy test. However, when you mentioned that Catherine and Isabel have consulted Jung prior to making this test, how can we confirm that? Was there any proof? How can we confirm that they did consult him? Or was that just made up rumors for them to convince the audience that this test is indeed reliable? Not only is this test vague and unreliable, it is also limiting us to a choice. It's forcing us to make decisions for different situations. However, in different situations, we tend to make different choices according to our circumstances at that time. So, if we were to face with these situations in real life, the choices that we will make might be different. Because, as they once said, words are easier said than done.
Aqila and Xue Yi, it is all about perspectives. One can choose to limit or to become a better version of themselves from this test. It depends on the individual. We can't stay in our comfort zones and put the blame on a personality test. This test was just an approach for you to get a sense of self-awareness. We all have a choice to make, whether we choose to sit and sulk and make no room for betterment, or to look at this as a wake-up call to grow into the best version of ourselves. For example, someone who is said to have a higher percentage of turbulence level based on the MBTI can choose to make better decisions or choices for themselves when any triggering scenario arises. They could learn to be kinder to themselves instead of always criticizing and being so hard on themselves. However, I do agree with Xue Yi that the personalities of human beings can't just be categorized into the ones we see in the MBTI. It is not something that we can measure.
Sarah, how can you say one can choose either to limit themselves or change themselves to a better version, and that it depends on the individual, when the MBTI format itself is limiting you? When you answer the questionnaire, you can only be categorized into two categories. You're either an introvert or extrovert, either thinking or feeling. For the extrovert and introvert part, what about those outside the scale? The omnivert and the ambivert, they are not an extrovert with a small percentage of introvert. They are two different types of people altogether. Also, the thinker and perceiver part of personality. Thinking and feeling are put on opposite poles of a continent in this test. In reality, they are independent. The research shows that people with stronger thinking and reasoning skills are also better at recognizing, understanding, and managing emotions. So when a person is scored as a thinker one time and then they redo the test and they get perceived one time, it's because that the person could be both. So there should be separate scores to the two.
Yes, and I agree with what Aqila said. No, the MBTI test itself is limiting. The test is made based on false and limiting binaries. Just like you said, Sarah, human personality falls within a range. Jung himself said that binaries are useful ways of thinking about people. However, he did say that there are no such thing as pure extroverts or pure introverts. Such men would be put into the lunatic system, and personally, I believe that that is true. Our traits as humans fall into a spectrum, a range, and you can't put a value on that. You know, the MBTI that we just took place a value on us. For example, if they said that I am 54% extrovert and 46% introvert, this percentage will limit us in our daily life, because as humans, we like to tag and label ourselves. Even if we try to deny the fact that these labels do not affect us, in actual fact, they do. These tags will only affect some, will only affect us, and only affect our actions some way or another. You know, for example, I am sure that all of us have felt this before, but there are days where you either just feel like staying at home or going out to live your best life. This is Tess claims that I'm an ENFJ and says that I'm an extrovert. And I believe that is true, and I do relate that and recognize that I'm an extrovert. However, if I was to take this test on those days where I feel like curling up into a ball in the corner of my room, surely I'll be classified as an introvert because I don't feel like socializing that day. Every decision that I make is all about myself. I don't want to socialize. I don't want to meet anyone. So with that being said, these values, they are unreliable and we can't solely depend on them.
Yes, in this aspect, I'm standing in the neutral ground. I do agree with Aqila that humans are not just black and white. There's always a gray area. The ambiguity is what I would like to tackle. Every day we encounter, if not thousands, then millions of situations where we have to make choices and decisions. We arrive at a junction. There's left, right, and in between, sometimes even more. It can be distressing not knowing what's at the end of the road and which way to choose. So this is where MBTI comes in, like a GPS in our lives. Whether you're a person who likes to make plans ahead or a spontaneous person who likes to follow your intuition along the way, knowing your MBTI lights up your ideal paths and gives you a heads up on what to expect if your chosen path is not as ideal. You might not know what's at the end of the final destination, but with MBTI, you can know which decision works the best for you. Instead of going through an unnecessarily longer route, you can take the best course of action to reach your goal the fastest. Therefore, I believe MBTI is very useful as a guideline as we navigate through different scenarios in our life.
This episode is really heating up. Regrettably, our time is running up already. So let's do another round table so we can have our speakers gather their final thoughts.
For me personally, I still believe that MBTI is more patient than a fact. I don't have anything personal against the quiz itself or the people who believes in the result. I mean, after it myself, it was fun, and you can either maybe learn something new about yourself when you did it, or disagree with a widely claimed description about yourself. Probably it's when it's used in job interviews or become the basis of a relationship. So yes, it's entertaining, but don't take it too seriously.
I am still sticking to my point that MBTI is a fact based on my personal experience. However, there are certain points that did make me feel a little towards the other end, so I'm feeling neutral about this.
As for now, I don't think that my opinion has changed much. I'm still leaning towards that MBTI is fiction. However, there are some truths that we cannot deny.
For me, I'm neutral too, but I'm more inclined to the belief that MBTI is definitely a fact. MBTI can be a guideline, but we need to be rational when adapting the results into our daily lives, not just following it blindly, or else we might bring harm not just to ourselves but also others too.
The vast majority of personality tests that we will encounter online are just for fun. They can be entertaining and might give you an insight into your personality, but they are in no way formal scientific assessment of your personality. The MBTI itself has both negative and positive aspects. Try it for yourself and see if it's this great and insightful test, or is it just meh. I would like to close this debate for thanking our guests for participating and thank all our audiences for joining us. Thank you and have a good day.